Hey traders, Shane from GMTfutures. Welcome, thank you for joining me. In this video I'm going to take you through the trend trader swing low trailing stop, so we'll just go and have a look at our charts. Okay, so we're back to the Euro US dollar Renko 5 brick. What I'm going to do firstly is basically just load up the pivot high, pivot low on our chart. So we've got our swing low tracking on our chart. So the first thing we do is we right click on our chart and we go insert analysis technique. Now we need to go to the show me tab. So if you have a look at that show me tab, and if you scroll down, you'll see that we've got actually pivot high, pivot low options. So we're going to select both of those. I'm going to go OK, and what's going to happen is they're going to actually be displayed on our chart. Now unfortunately they're not that visible because you've got, well, the red isn't too bad, but you can see the swing low there is cyan, the same color as our brick size or our brick color. So we're going to change that, and we're going to make that stand out a little bit. So we'll make that a yellow, and that'll help us obviously spot the swing low, which is what we're after. So remember, when we're plotting our trailing stop, our swing low trailing stop, we're basically looking for the previous swing low, and that will be our trailing stop. So as we know from our previous videos, our entry price there is 129.23, and what we're looking for is our initial stop is going to be, you're either going to have an initial stop of a designated 30 pips or 20 pips or whatever the value is that you're comfortable with as far as your trade entry, or alternatively you're going to use the previous swing low. So whatever method you decide to use as part of getting into your initial trade. So as soon as your trade sets up, whether it's going to be an initial stop value or the previous swing low, then you need to be consistent with the way you test that going forward, because remember that we've got to be consistent in everything we do. We've got to be objective, so that's part of the rule for obviously with our back testing. Now one thing we're going to do is we're going to just change the swing setting on our bricks here. So we're going to go into the pivots, and we're going to change both the inputs here, and we're going to change that to a 5, and a 5, because we want our swings to be a little bit bigger. We don't want to have too smaller swing on our pivots. So that offset of 5, that's the left strength, right strength. So what I've done there is I've basically just made that swing a lot bigger, and it won't print until it gets at least a alright traders, so I'm going to show you something that's really a great feature with TradeStation. This is the definition tab. So what we want to do is we want to go in and have a look at, right, well, I've changed my pivot to a 5 swing pivot because I want to see a lot bigger swings in my trades when I'm actually going for a setup, or when I'm in a setup and I'm trailing my stop. So I'm using the pivot low. So what we're going to do is we're going to go, and now if you've ever wondered what the actual definition for these show me or the indicators are, within TradeStation you can click on definition, and you can actually go to the definitions tab, and you'll see there that the pivot low show me study identifies the low pivot points by default. So by default it's setting up a left strength numeric of 3 and a right strength numeric of 3. So that's its actual default. So we've changed it to 5. So what that's saying is that for the left strength, right strength, it's a number of bars after the pivot point that must be higher than the previous pivot price, or alternatively lower than the previous pivot price. So in this example here, by default it places a dot at the low price of the bar when the low price is less than the low price of the 4 previous bars, and the less also than the low price of the subsequent 2 bars. So you can change the price used to calculate the pivot and the strength of the pivot. So that's what we've done. We've basically changed the pivot strength to 5 because we want bigger swings. That's basically what we're doing. And it says here the pivot points are used to calculate support and resistance levels, with the low pivot indicating that support level and the high pivot indicating a resistance level. So just like we've got dynamic support resistance on our chart, which are the red and green, we can use the pivot levels to add that additional layer or trailing stop, which we're going to do now. So we'll close out of that and we'll go back into our chart. Now you can see that, so I've selected that, that's okay. I've got the 5 loaded up, so we'll make sure that's loaded up correctly. If we right click on our chart format analysis technique, we've got, so we just need to change the low there, 5 and 5. We'll get rid of this one here, we'll remove that, and we've got high and low, that's perfect. So we're all set to go. So basically on our initial setup, there is our previous swing low. There's our entry there. You've got 129.23 our entry. Now if we look for that previous swing low, there's our previous swing low there. So that could potentially be where our stop is. Our stop is, and as you know, my preference is to have 5 pips or a brick size below the previous swing low. Now you can either use that as your stop, or if you're finding that that's just a little bit too much risk level and your comfort level for your risk, then you might have a fixed designated initial stop. But as soon as this trade starts moving in your direction, so as soon as you start getting movement, you're going to be wanting to look for that next swing low to print. So the next swing low prints here. That's our next swing low. So then we move our stop up 5 pips below the next swing low. Then we're waiting for our next swing low to print. And you can see here, there's our next swing low prints here. So then our stop moves up accordingly. Then we get another run up, and we see our next swing low, which is the yellow dots, prints there. So our stop is moved up. And finally we get a final push up here. Our stop moves up just below that retracement there. So these are all just nice levels of retracement for us to just move our stop under. And you see eventually this gets taken out because we've got our stop 5 pips below that. So we get knocked out at 131.27. So we're out at 131.27. So that gives us a nice 204 pips profit. So we'll go plus 204. So far in our testing, this has been the most profitable stop strategy, and that gets us out on the swing low trailing stop. So thank you for your time, everybody. As I've mentioned before, very easy to set up the swing low pivots on your chart, and a great way to obviously trail, but you've got to find the most appropriate stop for you, and that's why the testing is critical to determining what level or what strategy you're going to use as far as taking. So until our next video, thank you for your time, and I look forward to catching you again.